I will try to present the connection between the results of epigraphy and the knowledge of the traditionists of the Arab Islamic period with the example of 2 months recently discovered.
Essayez de parler au micro.
Oui, mais il faudrait que je trouve la suite. Parfait. Ces 2 inscriptions ont été découvertes. These 2 inscriptions have been discovered in the region of Hima, not far from Najran. This is Hima, about 90 kilometers northeast of Najran, and the region was explored by different teams. I don't enter in the detail. This is the region of Hima, which is the starting point of the caravan routes going to the Gulf and to the countries of the north, with the 2 rows showing these 2 roads. It's a region of hills, of sandstone, and also sand dunes, so it's a very hot and very dry region. Near the southern part of Hima, we have found on the hill number 5, 2 inscriptions. This is the first one. Hima, yes, is marked by a circle. This is a general view of the site. These 2 inscriptions, and this is the first one, which is easy to read. Across, Thawban Malik B'Yirah. Yirah is a warach in South Arabian, Yirah in Aramaic. The name of the month, Burak, and the number written by figures. The language is Aramaic, as it is shown by 2 words, Yirah and Shat. The numbers are Nabaṭaean, and the names of the authors and the script are Arabic. I show you the different figures for 1, 4, 20, 100, which are found in many texts. We'll see it in the following part of my presentation. This is an example dated 203 of the Christian era, but 98 of the Eparchy. Eparchy, it means the Roman province of Arabia, and the inception of this era is 105, the equinox of 105. This is a detail. It's easy to read. Shanat, 4 times 20, 10, and 3. Another example, this is the Nabaṭaean inscription. It was read traditionally 223, but you can see that one of the strokes is longer and evidently different from the others, and the reading is probably 227. This is the Harran inscriptions in Leja, in southern Syria. We have 400, 3 times 20, and this time all the strokes are of the same shape, so this time it is 463. The second inscription, but without a date. Across, Ishaq, Bar, not Ibn, but Bar, probably Amr, because Amr is always written with a waw. The second inscription is found about 30 kilometers north of the first one in Nafud al-Musamma, always in the Hima region. This is a text. It's more difficult to read, but it's engraved, and the erosion has destroyed a little bit the stone, and also the addition of a horseman with a spear, just above the text. And there is a small remains on the rock B of the beginning of the text. This beginning is a cross. And after that, you have probably Qais. I show you the transcription. Qais, Ibn Khidash, and the name of the month is the third line, Muʻtamir, Sanat, in Arabic this time, 408. I come back to the text. Mu'tamir, Sanat, 408. The script is Paleo-Arabic. This time the language is no more Aramaic, but probably Arabic. We have only one word. It's not a very strong basis, and the same symbols. Other text in the same region, about 50. I show only one of them, Adi ibn Sumay ibn Adi, and Sumay ibn Adi. Adi, written Adiyu, like many of the proper names, with the tanwin in Arabic, and with the waw in this script. Alors, we have two questions. First, identify the era, and secondly, identify the calendar. I don't enter in the difference between lunar and solar years and the terminology I use, except on one point. I use calendar for the list of the months. It's not the general system of the datation, but only the list of the months. The first step is identifying roughly the period. We can study the writing, the paleography, and also see the consequences of the fact that the authors of this text are Christians. For the paleography, we have text from the 4th century, this one. You have the word shanat, written in an archaic way, and sot or shot in Aramaic in the second text. You can see the difference of script. The text of Hima is evidently later than the first one. The first one is dated 355-56. And a comparison with Usay's text, which dates from the time of the king al-Harith al-Ghassani, which is evidently later. So we have a period between the 4th and the 6th century for the inscription of Thawban ibn Malik in Hima. So, according to the paleography, the date is very approximatively the 5th century AD. The two texts, the text of Thawban ibn Malik, but also the text of Qais are Christian. And it's very difficult to imagine that these texts are before the death of Constantine. We don't know in the world any Christian text, any Christian inscriptions before the death of Constantine. So we are probably after the middle of the 4th century. Another possibility is to choose an era whose beginning is in a period giving dates in the 5th century for our inscriptions. There is only one, which is the era of the Roman province of Arabia, whose inception is 105. If we see all the eras attested in Arabia, we have 19 inscriptions in the era of the Roman province of Arabia, and more than 100 inscriptions with the Ḥimyaritic era, but this era doesn't fit very well in our subject, because if the inception of the Ḥimyaritic era is 110 BC, and it gives dates in the 3rd century for the two Paleo-Arabic inscriptions of Hima, it doesn't give good dates. This is the list of the text dated according to the Roman province of Arabia, so you can see that the text of Hima enters perfectly in this list. And the last text, Harran, for instance, is cushioned like the text of Hima. Concerning the number used in the Hima text, they are very common. Most of the text dated in Arabia at the date written with numbers, with figures, and only 6 of them have the date written with letters, all the letters. This is an example. Sanat 250 وإحدى. It's the text published by Rutschtil from Medan Saleh. One of the texts of Hima is dated 470 of the Christian era, and we have an event recorded by Gez, Ethiopian text, mentioning a persecution against the Christian during the time of the reign of the Ḥimyaritic king Shurahbil Yakuf, and there is a correspondence. A second point, the texts of Hima are in the desert, far from the cities, far from the authorities, and it's possible, it is not evidently sure, that Thawban ibn Malik was a victim of the persecution of Shurahbil Yakuf against the Christians of Najran. So we have very probably a date for these two texts, which are 469, 470, and 513-14 for these two texts. That means we have there the oldest Arabic dated inscriptions. One of them in Zabad is very close, is 512, but in the Zabad inscription we have no date. The date is in the Greek text and in the Syriac text. Now we have to identify the calendar. It's not a calendar specific to the region of Najran. In the region of Najran, but hypothetically, we have one text, this one, not published but presented by Mohammed Nabaṭaean in conferences, in which we have the month name. The origin of this text is not known, but is probably the region of Najran, Qaryat al-Faw. And we can see that in Musnad script, the calendar used, hypothetically in the Najran region, is not the al-Muʻtamir-Burak al-Muʻtamir calendar. We have also, after Islam, many inscriptions in the Najran region, in Arabic especially, and some of them dated, the first one in 29, and in these inscriptions, the calendar which is used is the calendar Muharram Dhul Hijjah, without any surprise, like in this text, donc Jumada, without the precision al-awwal or al-akhir, but it's the Islamic calendar which is used since the beginning of Islam in the region of Najran. The names of these months, al-Muṭtamir-Burak, was known by 4 traditionists. A 5th one, Mas'udi, gives only the name of Burak. Qutrub, at the beginning of the 9th century, al-Farra died approximately at the same date, al-Biruni later, and Marzuqi. This is the list given by these traditionists with some changes between different authors, but it's possible to reconstruct the complete list with al-Muʻtamir always in the first place and Burak always in the last place. Another point interesting is that two authors gives equivalences between the calendar al-Muʻtamir-Burak and the calendar Muharram Dhul Hijjah. This is the appreciation of the different authors. Qutrub, here are also names of months without precision. Al-Farra. There are also Arabs who call such a month of the Islamic calendar in such a way. Al-Yaqubi. At that time, the Arabs gave other names to the days and to the months. And Birudi, for the Arabs month, there are other names that the ancient used. So, it's clearly a calendar of the Arabs according to the traditionist. Al-Marzuqi gives poetic fragments to illustrate these months' names. Evidently, it's impossible to say that each fragment is authentic and well attributed. But what is very clear is that for Al-Marzuqi, this calendar was a calendar used by the Arabs in general. And the poets which are mentioned are Laqit al-Iyadi, the Iyad, from the tribe of Iyad, al-Muhallil ibn Rabi'a, from the tribe of Takhlil, Ta'abbata Sharran, from Qais Ilan, 6th century. In the 7th century, Zayd al-Khail and Ra'i. And for the 8th century, Al-Kumayt ibn Zayd al-Asadi. So apparently, before and after Islam first, and in all the peninsula, secondly. This is for the origin. Alors, the last point is to know if this calendar is solar, lunar with corrections, or lunar. I remember that the year is solar. It's the Roman year of the Roman province of Arabia. It is possible, and the texts are questions. Normally, we wait that the calendar is solar, like the era. But it's not certain. It's not certain. For instance, in the Synodicon Orientale, in the year 677, you have this date for a synod in Eastern Arabia, and in this month of Iyar, Christian name of month, so a solar month. In the 57th year of the empire of the Arabs, with a lunar year. So it's a good example of the use of a calendar which is solar and a year which is lunar. We have also all the dated inscriptions in Nabaṭaeo-Arabic and Paleo-Arabic inscriptions with a list of months. These months are Nabaṭaean at the origin. So at the origin they are lunar. But as we saw for Iyar, these months became solar at a certain point. We don't know when. In this list, we don't know if the months are solar or lunisolar. And have also a series of Jewish inscriptions. For the Jews, normally, the calendar is lunisolar, and not only solar. So, as you can see, it's very difficult to answer to the question of the nature of this calendar. This is the list. I am not able to answer, are they solar months, like in the Roman province, or are they lunisolar, like in the Nabaṭaean kingdom? We don't know when the calendar changed. Alors, the inception, the beginning of the year in the Roman province of Arabia is equinox. So we have no answer for the calendar till now. Perhaps a contradiction between the calendar and the era, and perhaps not. In favor of a lunar calendar for Muʻtamir-Burak, we have the fact that two traditionists, al-Farra and Qutrub, give equivalences with the Muharram Dhul Hijjah calendar. But I think that these equivalences are probably a projection of Islamic era. And the consistency of this argument is perhaps weak. So I don't keep it, but there is an evidence in the sources of an equivalency between the two calendars. So, finally, it's difficult to conclude for the nature of the Muʻtamir-Burak calendar. The last point is to identify which place in the year is for al-Muṭtamir-Burak. Al-Muṭtamir is, according all traditionists, the first month of the year. Burak is the last month. The beginning of the year in the Roman calendar of the province of Arabia is the equinox of the spring, donc the last around 20 March of the year. So the best hypothesis is that Muṭtamir is March-April and that Burak is February-March. There is another argument. In 10 of Hijra, there was a reform of the calendar proclaimed during the farewell pilgrimage. And we know, according to the table, the date of the pilgrimage. And this date is 6th 8th March. It means that Dhul Hijjah was in 10 of Hijra in the month of March. And the first Muharram in 11 of Hijra was the 29th of March. If we accept that there was no correction and no transformation of the calendar after the last pilgrimage of the Prophet in Mecca, so we have a date rather sure for the month of Muharram in the year 10th of Hijra. And it is exactly some days of differences, the equinox of the spring. So it's another argument to suppose that Mu'tamir was the month of March-April. Here we have the list of the month of the calendar Muharram Dhul Hijjah in 10 of Hijra. The problem is to know if the list is valid for the periods before 10 of Hijra. The conclusion, I repeat briefly, the era is the era of the province of Arabia. This calendar is used by all the Arabs. The calendar Muharram Dhul Hijjah is not known in pre-Islamic poetry. So we have a picture of the calendars of pre-Islamic Arabia with these 2 months' names, which is rather different that it was previously thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Robin. May I ask if our 2 Zoom contributions are ready now or not? They are not ready. Then we continue with asking questions to our 2 recent contributors. May I invite Professor Fossati and Professor Robin to join me at the front table and invite you all to raise their questions. A first question comes here by Professor Marx.
A question to Angelo Fossati. Yes, why do you think the ibex is a symbol of the moon?
Well, the shape of the horns resemble one of the phases of the moon, but it's not my opinion. It's written in very different papers that there are many scholars that thinks this, and maybe, why not? No, for sure. I was not trying to convince anybody. It was a suggestion. It was a simple suggestion. But in effect, in rock art, there are, in my knowledge, there are no representation of moon, while we have several solar, as we recognize the rays at least. I am doubtful about the circle with a dot inside. That can be or solar, but also can be a full moon representation. And it is sometimes associated or overlapping the horn of the ibex. So in my opinion, maybe, but it's a big maybe, it's a thing that I'm working on, so it's just a suggestion.
First, thank you so much for these interventions. I would like. First, thank you so much for these interventions. I would like. First, thank you so much for this intervention. What is that? I don't understand. Some repetitions, maybe. I would like to ask a question about some declination days in Al-Hijr months and normal calendar. Normal month. Did you take this difference so to be to be exacted? And so I'm looking now for exactitude. Thank you very much.
Can you repeat the question? I have not understood precisely. Yes, yes, yes. It's not my purpose to discuss the tables of the transformation on the Hijri calendar to the Roman calendar. It has been established since centuries according to the movement of the moon and many sources, many datation in Arabic sources and so on. So there is a general agreement that since the reform of Omar, there is a perfect correspondence, there is the possibility to give perfect correspondence to the Hijri dates in Roman calendar dates, except that the dates in Hijri dates are founded on the observation of the moon, and in the table it's not the observation of the moon which is used, but the calculation of astronomical movement. So it could, the possibility we have 1 or 2 days of differences is open, but it's not the problem in our conference. Between 10 of Hijra, the pilgrimage of the farewell, and the reform of Omar in 17, between 10 and 17, perhaps there was modification in the calendar and the introduction of additions, we don't know. I did the hypothesis that the table are valid since 10 of Hijra. But evidently, for the 7 years, we have no information. Before Omar, we don't know anything.
In the relation with dating system, I don't know. But it's in relation with the significance of the swastika as a solar symbol. It's usually considered a solar symbol. And so this is why I consider, but not for any chronological.
I can add 2 things. The first one, the ibex in movement you have in your presentation are found in Hima many times. And the second point, the swastika is a letter in the Ḥimyarite and several Talmudic alphabets. So it became also a letters.
Yeah, this is true. In fact, it was at the end of a script, but because I don't know too much about it, may be. And I think in North Arabian there is also a solar letter in the North Arabian alphabet. No, I think. No, I mean the shape. In the shape, that the meaning. Yeah. So.
And the meaning is name.
The astrological system, zodiac, is the same between all civilization, except the Chinese civilization. Why? I don't know why it's different, the Chinese civilization, the zodiacal system.
The other question?
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Angelo. Is there was any archaeological dating of the sites like Saudi Arabia and Sultanate Oman? Because in your presentation, you mentioned the age with probability.
A very brief question, if you don't mind. Right, first, I think the findings you've just shared with us are fascinating. So my question for the second speaker, if you don't mind, have your results been documented yet? I mean, have they been published? second part of my question. Can you walk us through the methodological assumptions on which you actually based your hypothesis, and if that hypothesis been verified or not? And thank you.
Thank you for the question. I cannot speak about the astrological difference, so it's not my topic, and sorry. And the second thing is, it is difficult for me to talk about rock art methodology in a non-rock art conference like this. So it would take me more than 20 minutes of my presentation. But I introduce the way we construct the relative chronology, at least the relative chronology. So through superimpositions, the use of style, the revarnishing of figures. So there are this relatively also accepted by the scholars methodological approach. And so this is why I suggest chronology, but nobody can be completely sure. But for example, the association between ancient Arabian scripts with rock art, like we find, for example, with Munir in Dhofar or in Al-Wusta region, this is a sort of absolute chronology. In my area, for example, of study, we have a typical object that is the remedello dagger in northern Italy that is represented in the standing stones. And even if a standing stone is found out of context, if it represents this remedello dagger, it is an absolute chronology for me. Because the remedello dagger was found in tombs, in graves, dated clearly in the 3rd millennium before Christ. So this is a way that we make the chronologies of rock.
A point to add to what you said. In Hima, we have about 1 million of rock art representation and graffiti, and a lot of association of text with designs, and also a lot of superposition. And we have also a colleague, Majid Khan, who visited the places at different times in his life. And Majid Khan took pictures 40 years ago and sometimes 10 years ago. And it's possible to see additions. And the main point I want to underline, in the Hima region, more of 1/2 of the designs are from Islamic period. A huge quantity. It was thought at the beginning that the representation of persons was only before Islam, because it's condemned by the Islamic law. But it's not true at all. So the datation is something very difficult for rock art.
Professor Robin, if I have understood well, this al-Muʻtamir-Burak calendar was a lunisolar one. So does this mean that after the inception of the Roman province era, there were 2 calendars at once in northwest Arabia acting? I mean, one of Egyptian type, so solar, and then this calendar, both of them at the same time, and in some way the Hijri calendar descends from the second one? Is this what you are suggesting?
There are very few points which are sure. The ḥimyarite calendar is lunar with additions in the year 548. Only in that period we are completely sure. The Sabaean calendar is probably lunar with additions, as I showed, but the proofs are not very strong. We have only some indication. For the rest of Arabia, we don't know. And it's only hypothetical. And also, in fact, in the Sabian calendar, we have divisions of the month with 3 decades of 10 days with a lunar calendar. There is a contradiction. And we are not able to solve that contradiction. So, yes, we have 2 models, the Babylonian model and the Egyptian model, and we try to find solutions, but it's not easy, in fact. For the moment, more hypotheses than certitudes.